Hi all, my name is Ryan and welcome to my channel What the Pop, where we discuss pop culture in general and Buffy a lot. The usual spoiler alert. I may talk about things in these analyses that relate to future plot points. So if you haven't seen all of Buffy at least once, and you don't like spoilers, I suggest you like the channel, then come back once you have seen it all. Today we continue our look at Season 2 with my review and analysis of Episode 14, Innocence. A plot summary. Spike is getting antsy, waiting for the judge to actually do something. Drew gets a vision and starts smiling. Buffy wakes up, Angel's gone. Angel collapses in the alley. A smoking hooker asks if he's okay. He says never better, jumps up, bites into her throat and uses her as a bong. Buffy does the walk of shame and creeps home. We've all been there, Buffy. Angel rocks up to the factory. Judge tries to burn him. He has no humanity in him. And Giles is back. Spike and Drusilla are happy, their group is reforming for a comeback tour. The gang are worried about Buffy as she hasn't checked in. About to go look for her just as she turns up. Willow catches Cordelia and Xander kissing and gets a little upset. Buffy goes back to Angel's and finds him there. He's cruel and very un-Angel and hurts Buffy emotionally. Jenny visits her uncle, learns of the implications of the curse, says people are going to die and we're all fools. And Giles turns up and grabs Willow. Buffy turns up and distracts him. Xander frees her with a cross from Jenny. In a dream, Buffy realises Jenny knew about Angel and confronts her. She spills the tea. They visit Uncle Enyo, but Angelus beat them there. He's got a bad case of dead. Xander and Cordy sneak onto a military base with Xander's Halloween soldier memory and steals Buffy a present. While Xander is teaching Buffy how to use her present, Jenny tries to help. Buffy tells her to go away, Giles concurs. And Giles, Drusilla and the judge, and their minions, head to the mall, and just as the judge starts his mojo, Buffy shoots him with a crossbow. The judge reminds her, "No weapon forged can kill me." Buffy tells him, "That was them," and whips out her present. It's a frickin' rocket launcher! And Giles and Drusilla panic and dive over the railings to get away. Big Blue says, "What does that do?" before being blown to smithereens. Buffy chases Angelus. They fight. She can't bring herself to kill him and kicks him in the nuts. Giles is the best dad ever, and Buffy cuddles up to her mum on the couch. This episode was written and directed by Joss Whedon, so it should come as no surprise that this is without a doubt one of the best Buffy episodes. This episode makes it into the top 10 list of almost every best Buffy episode ranking. It was number 6 on Vox's, number 10 on Den of Geeks, number 6 on Junkies, number 5 on TV Guides, and number 9 on BuzzFeed's. This episode is so important to the central themes of Buffy, not just this season, but Buffy as a whole, that I would go so far as to say that if Innocence isn't part of the top 10 of someone's best Buffy episode listings, they have completely missed what Buffy is all about. In the commentary for this episode, Joss says, "This episode is, in a sense to me, and probably always will be, the most important episode of Buffy that we did. Important to me and the other writers creatively, because it fulfilled the mission statement that we first came up with. The idea of the emotional resonance of horror. The idea of the high school experience." And I'll talk a lot more about that later. This episode has some of the most brutal and deliberately hurtful dialogue delivered in a way that is designed to hit Buffy and us emotionally. And David Boreanaz shows here that he actually possesses some acting chops under the brooding good looks. He is vicious here, acting like the boyfriend that goes cold after he's gotten what he wants. Sarah Michelle once again shows us that she can do hurt and broken with the best of them. The scene with her and David, where Buffy has gone back to Angel's place and found him, it's a slow, brutal train wreck that you wish you could just pull her out of. It's a series of psychological and emotional cuts that get deeper the longer it goes on. I mentioned last episode, and I've mentioned it before, at how brilliant Sarah's face acting is, and we get another brilliant bit of face acting in a later scene here.
Buffy, you okay? Buffy.
We can see just in this look, this one look, as she stares into nothingness, unfocused on anything, how utterly broken she is at this point. And it is just a single look that conveys so much. Willow too has a great moment in here after catching Xander and Cordelia kissing, and although I don't think she's really justified in her reaction, I am actually on Xander's side for this one. It is another situation where when Alison Hannigan acts hurt, you want to do anything to make her feel better. Now, speaking of outstanding face acting...
Well, to the casual observer, it would appear that you're trying to make your friend Xander jealous, or even the score, or something. And that's on the empty side. See, in my fantasy, when I'm kissing you, you're kissing me. It's okay. I can wait. We're up.
It's written all over her face, the exact moment that Willow falls in love with Oz. Now, speaking of great scenes, this episode is absolutely full of them. Great quotes and great scenes. But there are two scenes in this episode where I absolutely cheered for Buffy. The first was the rocket launcher. First time I watched this episode, I actually guessed it was a rocket launcher in the scene where Xander says, "Happy birthday, Buffy, I hope you like the colour." I'd seen enough movies that the type of box, shape and length all screamed rocket launcher to me. But this didn't stop me cheering with glee at this moment.
No weapon forged can stop me.
That was then. This is now.
What's that do?
Seeing Angelus and Drew scatter, the judge having no idea what it is, it's all perfect. My other cheering moment was this one.
You can't do it. You can't kill me.
Give me time.
It's such a perfect statement, and so deserved after what he put her through earlier. Now, this episode also has what is quite possibly my favourite subtle joke in all of Buffy.
Arm.
He doesn't want to touch it, because the last time he saw that arm by itself, it grabbed Buffy around the throat. And to me, his response is hilarious. Xander gets a true moment to shine here. He isn't the butt of people's jokes. He's the person who has the idea of using a rocket launcher and develops the plan and executes it in order to get it for Buffy. I talked about the curse and the nature of the soul in Buffy when discussing Season 1, Episode 7, Angel. The curse itself is ridiculous in the way it works and cruel in its effect. There are tons of views and arguments in the fandom about what the soul actually is, how it changes someone, and particularly for Buffy, how it makes a division between Angel and Angelus. But I think people get too hung up on the semantics of it, in trying to define rules by which these things operate, when the simple truth is these rules don't exist. Much like Slayer and Vampire's strength, the internal law on the soul bends as the story needs it to, as Joss said in a New York Times interview. I would love to give you a more in-depth, coherent explanation of my view of the soul, and if I had one I would. The soul and my concept of it are as ephemeral as anybody's, and possibly more so. And in terms of the show, it is something that exists to meet the needs of convenience. The truth is sometimes you can trap it in a jar. The truth is sometimes someone without one seems more interesting than someone with one. In other words, like many things in Buffy, it is a plot device for telling a story and not much more. One aspect that does seem fairly consistent in the Buffyverse is that it gives a person a moral conscience, and as such is the reason it tortured Angelus. It should be noted that it wasn't sex with Buffy that made him lose his soul. He didn't orgasm himself to soullessness. It was after, laying in bed in perfect bliss with the woman he loved, and for once, not thinking about what he had done as Angelus. My basic view on the Angelus Angel Liam triptych and how the soul affects them is, Liam was a drunken loser and not a particularly good person before Dalek killed and turned him. Angelus was the demon and took Liam at his worst to the absolute extreme. Angel was Liam with a demon's heightened senses and experiences, now feeling the moral weight of a soul for the first time applied to everything he had done. Compare this to Spike. William Pratt, Spike's human name, was never seemingly a bad person, so when he became a vampire, although he was absolutely ruthless, he still retained a semblance of humanity, in that he was still devoted to those he, for want of a better word, loved, and I believe it was love. And as a result, he fought for his soul. It wasn't inflicted upon him as a curse like Angel's was, it was something he went through the demon trials to attain, and he did it to make him worthy of Buffy. And for a while, that soul, his moral conscience, drove him almost insane with guilt. Why then can humans in the Buffyverse still do horrible things if they had this soul providing moral conscience? Well, the soul is probably working fine. It's telling the humans they should be feeling guilt and remorse for their victims. It's telling them they should empathise with those they are going to hurt. But their brains are broken. The soul is telling them to feel empathy, but they are incapable of doing so. So it's not that the soul isn't working on those humans, the message just doesn't register on those who are incapable of feeling empathy in the first place. So if we want to get all biblical, as a person's moral conscience, the soul helps a human to be more righteous. Now if you contrast that with the judge, Angel describes the judge as someone to separate the wicked from the righteous and to burn the righteous down. The Bible has numerous passages that talk about being righteous, such as Proverbs 12:28, "In the path of righteousness is life, and in its pathway there is no death." Or Psalm 5:12, "For you bless the righteous, O Lord, you cover him with favour as with a shield." Proverbs 11:19, "Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die." When Angelus is touched by the judge says he senses no humanity in Angelus. It's a simple means of telling us unequivocally that Angel is now evil. The judge is essentially a twisted physical contrast to the idea of the soul. The soul, your moral conscience, is essentially judging you internally and produces guilt and other feelings which burn you up from the inside. The judge detects your moral conscience and punishes you for it, burning you up from the outside. The judge represents a perversion of that moral conscience. And we can see in this episode how Buffy's guilt is already beginning to burn her up. That she regrets her actions and almost believes she deserves punishment for them. She wrongly blames herself for Angel losing her soul, and part of that is because she believes she made the wrong decision. We saw in her conversation with Willow when she had decided they were going to have sex that she was a little unsure, that acting on want can be wrong. And now with this result, she knows that it was the wrong choice. She seeks punishment for her choice in Giles, and confirmation that she is guilty. She is judging herself harshly, believing she should be punished for her mistake.
You must be so disappointed in me.
No, I'm not.
This is all my fault.
I don't believe it is. Do you want me to wag my finger at you and tell you that you acted rashly? You did, and I can. I know that you loved him. And he's proven more than once that he loved you. You couldn't have known what would happen. The coming months are going to be hard. I suspect on all of us, but if it's guilt you're looking for, Buffy, I'm not your man. All you will get from me is my support and my respect.
Giles doesn't believe she deserves it, and him not blaming her, not being disappointed in her, is the first step in Buffy forgiving herself, something she will spend the next few episodes doing. The reason Joss said this was the most important episode of Buffy is because it is central to the overall theme of the show. What I think in terms of the philosophy at the heart of Buffy, Lie to Me is, as commentator Eric said, the Buffiest episode of the show. This episode really encapsulates what Buffy is all about thematically, particularly in these early seasons. Joss said, I pitched the show as the ultimate high school horror show, very basically taking the pain, humiliation, alienation and all the problems of high school and ballooning them into horrific proportions. The show only works if it resonates. That's the most important thing. The show is conceived as a metaphor for growing up. That journey one takes from childhood to adulthood and all the horrors we face on that journey. As noted in Lie to Me, it highlights that we always have a choice. That the choices we make shape who we are, and the choices we make have consequences that will often extend beyond just us and into the world around us. Buffy so far has made a number of adult decisions as the Slayer, such as choosing to face her death as predicted by the Pergamum Codex in Prophecy Girl. As the Slayer, she has had to grow up far quicker than the people around her. But this decision, the decision to sleep with Angel, is her first conventionally adult decision as a normal woman. Coupling and sex have been a major theme of the episode so far, and all the episodes of this season have led up to this decision. As per the philosophy of Buffy, the rest of this season will be spent dealing with the fallout from that decision. Choices, actions, and consequences, themes we will revisit again and again and again. The episodes so far have metaphorically warned Buffy about sleeping with Angel, that it was going to have negative consequences, and that she should remain the virgin sacrifice. Her what-if version, hooking up with her metaphorical heart, has shown us repeatedly that Buffy shouldn't follow her heart on this one. Willow, when she finds out about Xander and Cordelia, says, "It's against all laws of God and man." Sure, she's being overly dramatic, but when you apply that to Buffy and Angel, a Slayer and a vampire, it's relevant. They are completely wrong for each other. In surprise, Joyce asked Buffy, "Do you really think you're ready, Buffy?" And while she told Willow she was, no one can prepare you for losing your virginity to the man you love and him losing his soul, becoming a monster that it will be your responsibility to kill. As Joss said, the pain and humiliation of high school, that of your boyfriend turning into a jerk after you sleep with him, ballooned up to horrific proportions. He's now lost his soul as a result and is coming for you. And Giles, for his part, is brutal. He can't beat Buffy physically. We see that when she rallies at the end of this episode. And he knows to beat her he needs to break her, emotionally and psychologically. He says to Spike,
To kill this girl, you have to love her.
he's not attacking the Slayer. The Slayer is powerful, more powerful than he is. So he's attacking the woman, tearing her down emotionally to make the Slayer vulnerable. And he succeeds momentarily. We see how hurt Buffy is by his purposeful callousness, how the man she loved has become the monster she feared he was, the monster her metaphorical heart warned her about. And when he attacks Willow, Buffy has a psychological break. She is in shock. Joss said in an interview, "I think as you make your way through life, it's hard to maintain a moral structure, and that difficulty and the process of coming out the other side of a dark, even psychological time is to me the most important part of adulthood." This will be a recurring theme on Buffy as well. Here, this is the darkest time Buffy has faced so far as an adult. Her decision to have sex was a deeply personal one, something not linked to her destiny as the Slayer, but to her sexual maturation as an adult, and it has created a soulless monster. The first time he saw her afterwards, he was brutal. Emotional, traumatic death by 1,000 cuts. The second time he tells her the man she loved is gone and only the sadistic monster remains. Her psyche is broken. After the second time, however, Angel appears to Buffy in a dream, tells her where to look, and this fires her up. She confronts Jenny, finds out about the curse and its nature, realizes that yes, she was the trigger. Meanwhile, he kills Uncle Enyo and leaves a gross message for Buffy scrawled in blood on the wall. While before she was broken, now she's just pissed. Buffy is going through the 5 stages of grief and experiences them here. Denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and ultimately acceptance. She is unable to stake him just yet. She's not ready, but she already knows that she has to and has accepted that. This experience will change Buffy because that's what growing up is. It's change. And at times that change, like this one, can be painful. But again, it comes down to choice and consequence. Buffy's inability to kill Angel here will have repercussions in the future, not just for her. But the reason this episode is so important in terms of Buffy's themes is not the sex itself. That is merely the catalyst for Buffy's growth and maturation into adulthood, an experience most of us have or will share. As Joss said, it only works if it resonates. That's the most important thing. And the most important thing here is in the title. While Buffy has lost her innocence in one way, she is and still remains an innocent. Joss says on the commentary for the episode, it meant not just the loss of innocence, but the fact that the innocence isn't lost. That Buffy is, in this sense, an innocent. That she hasn't lost anything of herself, even though she's gone through a painful maturing process. And that's why her mum says, "You don't look any different to me here," as a way of stating that she's still the same good person that she was. As I've detailed before, the show's four main characters, Willow, Giles, Xander and Buffy, are often depicted as metaphorical aspects of Buffy. Willow is Spiritus, the spirit, Giles is Sophis, the mind, Xander is Animus, the heart, and Buffy is Manus, the hand. The writers often create comparisons to these aspects, such as Daryl, Chris and Eric in Some Assembly Required. In this episode, we get a twisted contrast with our antagonists. Spike, now confined to a wheelchair, is our Sophis, and represents the dark mind. We saw that in action, particularly in Surprise, when Spike was rationally keeping Drusilla from plucking out Dalton's eyes, as he was their only minion with half a brain. It was Spike's plan to assemble the judge for Drusilla's party, his present to her. When the judge is reassembled, it is Spike who asserts control over him. The judge says Spike and Drew stink of humanity, and Spike reminds him of who assembled him and brought him forth. But Spike is weakened and does not hold the influence over Drusilla he once did. She insists they stay in Sunnydale when he wants to leave, and he is left behind when the judge, Drew and Angelus go to the mall. Drusilla, now restored to full strength, is Spiritus, and represents the dark spirit, distorted by a lack of empathy and an immature childish outlook. Throughout this season, she has been a contrast to Buffy's connection to the Slayer power, represented mostly through their shared visions. Buffy's visions only come when she's asleep, when she is able to step away from the physical world, and her role as the hand and walk the spirit world. Drusilla is psychologically broken, her perspective distorted by psychological and emotional torture. She always has one foot in the spirit world, a connection she had before she was turned. Angelus, now soulless, having experienced a moment of true happiness, is Animus, and represents the dark heart, twisted by obsession. We've heard from Drusilla and Angel how he became obsessed with Drusilla, and did everything he could to torture her emotionally and psychologically until her mind broke. As Angelus, he is incapable of love, but develops instead a single-minded obsession with the object of his desire. Here he uses that obsession and intimate knowledge to inflict some of the cruelest emotional and psychological wounds upon Buffy. Things she will never really heal from, things that will affect all the future relationships. The judge is Manus and represents the dark hand. Buffy as the hand is a protector of the weak and vulnerable, a shield between humanity and the supernatural. She is guardian of our continued existence. The judge is the opposite. He is a sword against humanity, something he sees as a weakness and is designed to burn and destroy. As Buffy's judgment of herself grew, the power of the judge also grew. So powerful is his judgment that he no longer needs contact to inflict it. Contrast this to the Scoobies. Xander is usually depicted as a bit of a loser, and in Surprise had a horribly misogynistic line about Buffy's future with Angel. But here, Xander as Buffy's metaphorical heart rallies even when Buffy's heart is broken. While she mourns her loss, her metaphorical heart comes up with the idea of the rocket launcher to defeat the judge, comes up with the plan to get it, and executes that plan flawlessly. Most importantly, He teaches her how to use the rocket launcher, enabling her to be the Hand again. Willow, as her metaphorical spirit, protects her from further harm. She puts aside her issues when she finds out about Xander and Cordelia in order to help Buffy. She's the first to realise what caused Angel to change, and when Giles, the inquiring mind, continues to press Buffy for answers, Willow says, "Giles, shut up," shielding Buffy from having to relive that moment and having it dissected and analysed by her metaphorical mind. Giles, as her metaphorical mind, does two important things that both amount to the same thing. He shows that he supports her 100%. First, by taking Buffy's side over Jenny and telling Jenny to leave when Buffy wanted her gone, and then by not judging her, by being the complete opposite of the judge. The judge was sent to burn out people's humanity, their love, their compassion. Buffy feels guilt and that she should be judged, but Giles, as her metaphorical mind, refuses to judge her. He does not believe it's her fault, he doesn't believe she is guilty of anything but loving Angel, and he will not judge or punish her for it. In the end, Buffy is flanked and supported by all her metaphorical aspects and her what-if version. And scenes like this in Buffy always remind me of Once More with Feeling. What can't we face if we're together? Buffy embraces her role as the Hand and hits the judge with a crossbow. It's not meant to kill him, merely get his attention. He yammers on about no weapon forged can kill him. As a breaker of tradition and a modern woman, Buffy is of the now, and hits the judge, a symbol of something older and more traditional, with a very modern rocket, for which he is no match. The unkillable demon, while maybe not dead, is defeated quite easily. Then Buffy goes after Angelus, the Dark Heart. He kicks her around some more, symbolic of the emotional beating he has already inflicted. But Buffy has the support of all her aspects now, and she defeats him. She can't bring herself to kill him yet, so she kicks the Dark Heart in the nuts. She may not be ready to destroy him just yet, but she certainly can still do him damage. Joss says during the commentary that this was the first sex scene he had ever filmed, and he felt extremely awkward doing it. So when it came time for sound editing, he couldn't get Sarah Michelle and David to vocalise it. So the sounds you hear are Joss and sound editor Cindy Rabideau. There are so many good quotes in this episode, and I've already used most of them elsewhere in this analysis and review, so I'll use this one.
Well, does looking at guns make you want to have sex?
I'm 17. Looking at linoleum makes me want to have sex.
It's a fantastic bit of levity in an emotionally brutal episode. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. It helps the channel a lot. You can also support the channel through Patreon. If you disagreed with anything I said or have anything to add, please put it in the comments below, and I'll see you next video.